All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome into A Bettor Morning brought to you by Rival Fantasy. It's your boy, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, coming at you on a rainy Thursday morning where I am down here in the great state of South Carolina. Got a lot to get to today, though. Look back at the night in Major League Baseball in a couple minutes. Got to bid farewell, happy trails to another top seed, so we'll get that done. Got Thursday night football game tonight. Get ready to get into that in a second. With the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos. What a disaster the Denver Broncos have been so far this season. Rival Fantasy will get you some winners for their challenges game. And obviously, I do want to get into a little bit of college football as they get ready to start a new week. Games tonight, tomorrow, obviously, a big day on Saturday. But the tonight NFL week starts with matchup that's not very intriguing, to be 100% honest with you. Looks like we're going to be treated to another primetime stinker. Just last Thursday night, we saw the Washington Commanders get their butts kicked by the Chicago Bears, which is something that you rarely ever hear people say, Bears kicking somebody's butt. But this week, we got the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. Denver Broncos on the road this weekend. Kansas City laying at 10.5 at home. That 10.5 all the way up to 11 now. Just a nasty situation right here for the Denver Broncos that's been this season. That's really been the past two seasons. The Nate Hackett / Sean Payton era. And a couple interesting things, right, that I want to get into about the Denver Broncos to get us started today. And their situation that they've got themselves in right now. It all started with them getting duped into paying for Russell Wilson and bringing Russell Wilson into that organization, thinking that he was the missing piece to a championship team. And, I keep going back to this because everybody takes like Antonio Brown as this joke. But I remember after week one, when Brown was on the show with Cam and Mace, he said that the reason why Sean Payton did that onside kick to start the season is because he wanted to see Russell Wilson right away. And Brown said that Payton realized that Russell Wilson's not the guy, and Payton was going to do everything he can to tank this season, throw this season away, so he can get Russell Wilson out of there. About a month into the season, it looks like that's exactly what's going on with the Denver Broncos. Have you heard Sean Payton come to the podium and give a ringing endorsement for his starting quarterback, Russell Wilson? As a matter of fact, we know that the job wasn't that attractive to a lot of people that was in the head coaching market last year because nobody wanted to work with Russell Wilson. Kind of was the bottom line of the matter. Now we're seeing that play out kind of in real time. I told you it was interesting the other day. I was listening to Michael Lombardi talk about the situation in New England and the situation in Denver. And he said that he would rather be in Sean Payton's spot because he knows that Sean Payton is going to be coaching the team next year. And I found that to be very interesting. Then you see reports yesterday that Belichick is not considered unfireable by Robert Kraft. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But back to the Denver Broncos. DeMeco Ryans is who they wanted to give this coaching job to. Ryans rather start over with a new quarterback in Houston than to inherit Russell Wilson in Denver. It's just the truth of the matter. Now that Sean Payton has bought it, he is basically just trash the guy every time he get a chance. He comes to the press conference, he comes to the podium, he open up his mouth, he's talking negatively, or he'll throw a zinger at Russell Wilson. We all heard about the stop kissing the effing babies and all of that stuff. It is what it is. You got your nice guy quarterback in Russell Wilson. He's popped. He's toast. He can't get the job done. So Sean Payton wants to make a big splash with a quarterback in the draft. So as far as betting on this or wagering on this game tonight, the way the Denver Broncos are playing, how could you really get involved with anything Denver Broncos that's just not lower or under? Because that's what they do, underperform. So You got a situation where I feel like the team is trying to lose or not put forth their best effort. Now, in football, it's tough to tank because you can get hurt. But there's ways to get around it and go about it. You've seen what this team has been the past few weeks to start the season. They're one of the worst teams in the league. I'm not really big into laying numbers in prime time. Not really big into laying a number with the Chiefs at home. Not really big into taking favorites in divisional matchups. Like all of that is like bad advice. That's square money. That's the chalk. Prime time favorite, divisional favorite. These are wagers that don't hit. But this game is different. You got the Chiefs, who are not really a well-oiled machine yet, but you see the defense is solid. You see that, the weapons ain't there. Kelsey banged up. But if Mahomes need to go hero ball, they'll still figure out a way to win the football contest. I just can't get behind Denver Broncos right now. Just can't do it. So it'd probably be a no play for me as far as wagering on the game is concerned. Notice Patrick Mahomes' rushing prop went from 12 all the way up to 25. Then last week he didn't have one rushing attempt at all. Interesting, right? I can see him getting back to that this week. I tell you a prop that has not hit this season and probably won't hit tonight, Travis Kelce over receiving yards. Probably is not going to hit. I would go lower or under on that one right there. But that's it. Not the most intriguing game to start the NFL week, but there's still plenty of good action on the card this week. Just won't see it on Thursday Night Football. Now, you need to get ready, get prepared for the upcoming week. Best thing that you need to do is going over to Fantasy Alarm and sign up for an all-pro subscription. You can unlock all the content for all sports, including annual draft guides, daily and weekly rankings, the value vault, positional coaches, and more. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Once again, that's fantasyalarm.com/win. Sign up for that all-pro subscription. Unlock all of that content, daily and weekly rankings, value vault, position coaches, and more. fantasyalarm.com/win. Major League Baseball action last night. I tell you what, the Major League Baseball playoffs, it's always a very fun playoffs because it is the playoffs to where the thing that is least likely to happen really has the best chance at happening. So last night, apparently this is personal thing has taken over the sports world because I guess it was personal between the Braves and the Phillies last night. Bryce Harper with that stare down on them home run trots against the Phillies. Against the Braves last night in Philadelphia. Yeah, it's looking like it's starting to get a little bit personal between these two rivals. Braves 104 wins on the road, down 2-1. They got to see if they can battle back and get back in this game last night. Philadelphia Phillies kind of rolled them. 10-2 victory over the Atlanta Braves. Phillies take a 2-1 series lead in this one. Aaron Nola gets the win for the Fighting Phils. Bryce Harper was a G last night. In the Twin Cities, you had the Astros get the 3-2 victory over the Minnesota Twins. Houston now has a 3-1 series lead. Houston Astros doing Houston Astros things. No reason to hate on it now. You know what I'm saying? Houston getting the job done. They win game 4 to take a 3-1 series lead. They win the series. I said 3-1 series lead. Division round series. So they go on and they advance. They get ready for the winners. Now, last night, you also saw the Arizona Diamondbacks sweep the Los Angeles Dodgers right out the playoffs. Happy trails to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Take your 100 wins and go get ready for next year. If I was LA Dodger fan, when is this going to stop? Like, when are you going to win 100 games and don't ever win the World Series? Or at least don't win the World Series enough? Like, 100 wins and end up playing 3 more games in the Mets. I understand that pennants and division championships and those banners fly more so in baseball than any other sport. But for Christ's sakes, Every year, the Dodgers just like that, done. Big high payroll, MVP candidates, free agents, own the winter meetings, but never own October. Not a good look for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But anyway, shout out to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They get the job done. Got one game in Major League Baseball tonight, and that's a goodie. Phils and Braves, all important game 4 of the series. Phils can wrap this thing up tonight. Atlanta's a minus $1.55 favorite. Your man Spencer Strider going to the mound for Atlanta. 20-5 on the season for Strider, a 3.86 ERA. Last outing for Strider, 7-inning pitch, only give up 1 earned off a home run, and the Phillies lost. But got a good chance with him on the mound, and a win over the Phillies. Now, that's who's going for Atlanta. For the Phils, you got Ranger Suarez going out there for the Philadelphia Phillies. So we'll see if the Titans can wrap them up and send the Braves home. Another number 1 seed goes down, tumbling, biting the dust like the Dodgers did. So a little bit of Major League Baseball update in action for you. Major's hot and heavy in action right now. Want to talk some college football before we get up out of here. Got a big weekend in college football this weekend. But I wanted to start to look at the college football playoff. Only into the month of October, but I think we might be able to find some value out there while we still near how Philly is fired. I mean, you got to give them their props. You know what I'm saying? What up, Hal? And you got to give Phillies, you got to really, I hate to do this as a New Yorker, but you got to give the city their props. Like, the Eagles are legit contenders. The Phils are legit contenders. The 76ers will be a 50-win team. They talking about Joel Embiid playing 70, 72 games this year. If you get 72 games with Joel Embiid, might break every record. So Philly's getting it done. Their counterparts to up I-95, not getting it done in New York. Anyway, back to the college football action. Let's start with the Texas Longhorns, who right now, to make the college football playoffs, plus 175. If they would have won this past weekend in the Red River game versus Oklahoma, that number probably would have been minus 175. Texas is going to need to win out, beat Oklahoma, and get some help to make it to the college football playoff. At plus 175, they're still in the mix, but they're going to need some help. Michigan has the second shortest odds at minus $1.45 for the Wolverines. Now, obviously, with Michigan, it's the 2 games coming up. Obviously, the big one versus Ohio State to end the year. But Penn State is in this thing this year, too. And Michigan goes to Happy Valley about a month from now. That's going to be a humongous game. So, the Wolverines are in this thing, but they still got some work to do. But right now, they got an inside track. The Georgia Bulldogs, wow, this number went up as I'm sitting here. Goes from minus 205 to minus 215. They must know something I don't know. But Georgia at minus 215, that's a sucker's bet. Be careful with Georgia. Like I said, I don't think Georgia is a undefeated SEC champion this year. I think there's a loss coming. Looking at the schedule, the only place you can really see it is when they go to Neyland Stadium later on this month, go down to Rocky Top, face Tennessee. That's going to be their toughest match. The game in Happy Valley, Michigan won't cover the spread of the window. We'll see. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough one, Hal. But as far as the Bulldogs, they got to go to Neyland. Other than that, their next biggest test will probably be in the SEC championship game. A one-loss SEC champion, Georgia, makes the playoff. A one-loss Georgia that's not an SEC champion probably make the playoff as well, but that would be interesting. But Georgia at minus 215, not a good bet right now. Penn State at plus 260 is interesting to make the college football playoff, but you know what Penn State has to do? They got to hold down their fort in Happy Valley when Michigan comes, and they got to go to Ohio State and win. And Maryland can be frisky too. So Penn State has some work to do, but the path of Penn State is ahead. At plus 260, I don't know if I give it a sprinkle because you got some behemoths of college football coming up on that schedule. They got North Carolina on here at 12-1. North Carolina would have to be an undefeated ACC champion and get help. They got decent wins on the schedule with South Carolina and some other teams. They still got to go to Clemson, but they would have to be an undefeated ACC champion to even be in the conversation. Up next, Ohio State at plus 150. Buckeyes got the strong victory over Notre Dame, so they got a leg up on that. Obviously, Penn State comes to Columbus, but Ohio State goes to Michigan this year. So you all know what Ohio State is at plus 150. They're live. That win over Notre Dame makes them live, but they still got help. They're still going to need help. Now, here's an interesting one right here. The Washington Huskies. They got the big matchup this weekend. Right now, they're plus 250 to make the college football playoff. This right here, I might take a bite on. They got the big matchup versus Oregon this weekend, right? But their toughest match down the stretch will be going to USC. I think USC will have a loss by the time Washington comes in there. USC hasn't played that well. I think Washington, as a one-loss or an undefeated Pac-12 champion, is a college football playoff team. Up next is Tennessee at 25-1. This would have been worth a spike too if they didn't already have a conference loss. Being that they already have that nasty loss to Florida, if they was to pull off the upset over Georgia, it still couldn't get them to the SEC championship game. Well, maybe it could. Yeah, it could, because, they would still have that. Oh, but they still got, Tennessee still has to go to Alabama. I forgot about that. So they already have one conference loss. Georgia comes to their building, but they go to Alabama. They'll have two conference losses. So Tennessee at 25-1, not worth the bite. Wisconsin at 22-1, it's not going to happen. They can't compete with the top of the conference, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. USC at plus 400 is interesting. They have a big matchup this weekend versus Notre Dame. They are on the road as a dog. They got to go to South Bend. I think Notre Dame wins the game. But if USC can win this game, USC is live to be a college football playoff team. Got the big game with LSU. They get Washington in their building. They get Utah in their building as well. But they have to go to Oregon. I would take a bite on USC at plus 400, even though I think Notre Dame gets them this weekend. But if USC was to win this weekend, you have to understand they have Caleb Williams. So the college football playoffs, if USC can be a one-loss Pac-12 champion, they're going to the playoffs. Florida State at minus 150. This number is only going to get lower. I would bet this at minus 150. Florida State already with wins over LSU, already with a win over Clemson. They hold serve probably a undefeated ACC champion. Florida State's going to the college football playoff. Utah, who I mentioned earlier, they do have to go to USC, but the other tough matchups are at home. Utah at 22-1 is very interesting. I would take a bite on that. Oregon State at 20-1, the road is too tough. Oklahoma is at plus 180 is interesting. They already have the win over Texas. They would have to be a one-loss Big 12 champion, with that one loss being in the Big 12 championship game against Texas. Then they have a good shot to get in, but even then they would need some Pac-12 losses. Ole Miss, not worth talking about. If Oregon wins this week, they're live. Alabama at plus 400. Yeah, I would take a shot on Alabama at plus 400, because what you can get with Bama at plus 400 is they've already got road wins. Their next toughest games are both in Tuscaloosa versus Tennessee and LSU. They'll end up playing more than likely Georgia in the SEC championship. If they lose that game, they're out. If they win that game, which I think they will, then all hell breaks loose. Because now you got to take two SEC teams, which will mean you get two SEC teams, the winner of Ohio State, Michigan, and then either an angry Pac-12 team or an angry Big 12 team. So they can keep somebody like Texas, Oklahoma, Oregon, Utah out. So interesting month coming up. It'll shake out, but that's early look how I see it right now. Give you a couple plus money looks right there. Don't forget tonight, Thursday night football. Get straight, be prepared. Get that Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription and unlock all that content, and you'll be good to go right there. Now, we do got to get you some winners. It's that time of day. I got you, Heather. We do got to get you some winners. It's that time of day. So let's go to the Rival Fantasy Executive War Room, we'll call it. Who will score more fantasy points? Rival Fantasy, your all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Who will score more fantasy points? Jamar Chase or Travis Kelce? I'll take Jamar Chase in that matchup versus the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. Travis Kelce, a little bit banged up right now. Hasn't really been getting it done. I go Jamar Chase getting that heavy workload. Bijan Robinson versus Travis Kelce. I go with Bijan in this one right here. I think Bijan is in line for a nice workload in that game versus the Commanders. Then that'll be a good back and forth game. We already see the Commanders are not really great at defense, despite their head coach Ron Rivera supposedly being a defensive guy. So give me Bijan in that matchup. All right, look at that. We got Taylor Swift's boyfriend again. This time up against Anthony Richardson. I guarantee you he'll outscore Anthony Richardson. So I'll take Travis Kelce in this one right here. And then the final one, A.J. Brown versus Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I'm going to go with A.J. Brown. That's 16 per a reception. One of the best, maybe the most elite wide receiver in the NFL. Give me A.J. Brown right there. So there you go. That is Rival Fantasy, your all-in-one fantasy sports platform. That is their fantasy challenges contest. Rival Fantasy, you can play challenges, fantasy book, fantasy bingo, plus season-long fantasy football. If your fantasy football season is already a bust, draft a second chance season long with Rival Fantasy and receive $250 in cash prizes. Go to joinrival.com/alarm. New users who sign up at Rival Fantasy get a $200 deposit match and a complimentary first play vouchers. Once again, that's Rival Fantasy, your all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Coming up next on the Bettor Network is Real-Time Fantasy Sports Show with my man, Jeff Power. For the lovely and talented Heather Klein, your boy, Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive.